In today's video, we're going to be installing the Airlift 5000 Ultimate on this Ram 1500. Let's get started. All right, welcome back to today's video, you guys. So we are going to be installing the Airlift 5000 Ultimate Adjustable Air Springs, they're calling them, but they are an airbag for the back of this Ram 1500. So here is the kit, and I showed you guys in the last video, if you guys been following along, that I purchased this kit off Amazon. And if you guys are lucky and you pay attention when you order stuff off Amazon, you can find in the corner that sometimes you'll find some open box items. So that's what I did with this. It came out to about $300 for this kit when I think it goes for about $400. So it's a way to save yourself some money. Like, I don't really care if the box comes a little bit beat up as long as everything is in here. And I checked and it is. So like I said, beat up packaging, but same product that's unused. So why not save a buck, right? So anyways, I'll link that down in the description where you guys can check out these ones. I want to point out just before we get started, this one is the Ultimate kit. And the difference between the regular and the Ultimate kit is it has what they refer to as an internal jounce bumper, but it's essentially just a bump stop and it's inside the airbag. So that means that if this thing bottoms out, that at least you have the bump stop, because this kit is going to replace where the factory bump stop goes. So this has one inside, they don't fall over, but it has one inside the middle of it. So if you bottom out, you still have that bump stop in there. So here's the whole kit. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. All the hardware is in here. It has this heat shield for the one that goes next to, I believe it's on the passenger side, but we'll get to that once we get under there. But this heat shield is for one of the airbags on the one side. We've got our air line here with both of our Schrader valves. So this will come out, probably end up putting it by the license plate area. And I'll step you guys through what we got to do, and let's get started. All right, so just before we get started, you will want to remove your spare tire. So I just took that out. You guys already know how to do that, of course. You're gonna need a few tools, a Sawzall, a cutoff wheel, or maybe one of the other, but you're going to need something to cut off the bump stop cups and then to smooth it out. So I've got a flat wheel so we can take down any material. We're going to need a flat surface, and then I also picked up this roll bar and chassis paint so we can touch up once we cut off those cups. So you're going to need something like this, and then your basic sockets and all that stuff. So one other thing too is they do say that you need to drop the spring. I kind of looked at it. I'm going to see if I can cheat it a little bit. The only reason why it looks like they want you to remove the spring is to get a drill in so you can drill 2 holes for the bracket that goes to the top on the frame. I'm going to see if I can do it without it. I'll try to minimize the amount of steps that are needed, but we'll go ahead, we'll pop the wheel off, we'll start working on the driver's side first, and we'll get to it. All right, so there is our bump stop, and you can see the cup for it, and this bracket is gonna go in there in place of that whole cup. So that's the reason why they're telling you to remove the spring, so you can get a drill bit in here. So you might be lucky, but might also have to take the spring out. Either way, we're gonna go underneath the vehicle, and we're gonna Sawzall this cup off clean and get that all prepped up. All right, so I used a Sawzall blade and it cut off very clean. So I'm just gonna clean this up just a little bit. There's just a tiny little bit of weld still there. So I'll hit it with the flap wheel, and then we can paint it with black paint. All right, so we got our surfaces all smooth. I'm just gonna hit with some paint. Okay, we got a nice coat of black paint on there, so let's move on to the next step. Okay, so I bit the bullet. We're gonna take the spring out. Seems like it's a little bit easier, and we gotta mark these holes anyway. So we've got the jack over here, got a jack stand behind it, and you have to take out the lower shock bolt so you can push this all the way down. Keep an eye on your brake line, make sure it's not under any crazy tension. And they want you to mark the spring. So I got a black marker here. I'm gonna mark the spring in alignment with our axle so that we can put it back in the same spot once we take it off this cup. So let's go ahead and do that. So here's our mark, let's take it out. Okay, so I promise I didn't take anything else out, but that was a 2-man hander. We got Jason over here. We just yanked it out of there, but yeah, all I did was take off the lower spring, push down on this at the same time, and a little bit of wiggling, and she pops off the cup. So now we'll go ahead, we're gonna get that bracket on there, and we can start drilling our holes. Okay, so you take the bracket and you put in the M8 bolt and you leave it loose so that you can slide it back and forth. And what you're gonna do is that hole right there, you are going to line it up with that, and then you're gonna push the bracket in so that it meets up with the surface right here. Once it meets up with that surface, you can go ahead and mark your hole right here. So there's another hole right there, and you're gonna drill it with a 1/4 inch drill bit, and then you're gonna install the self tappers that it comes with. And then once you get all those lined, then you can tighten up this as well once you got everything in place. All right, so we used that as our template, and we drilled a 1/4 inch hole right there, and now we're gonna use a self tapper and fasten the bracket. All right, so we got that self tapper in, and now we can go up to the side here, and we'll put in our 2 self tappers from the side. So here we are here, we're gonna push this bracket up, drill our holes, and we'll put in those self tappers. All right, so there we go. Bracket's on, all our hardware is tight. We can move on to the lower mounting bracket. So here's our 2 bags. On the instructions it says that they're not assembled, but mine came assembled with the top and lower plates already good to go. If you'll notice here, there is a left and a right, so left being driver's side, right being the passenger side. So that's all set to go. So we should be able to hang this on here, and there is bolts you'll see here. So there's these positions here, and those bolts go through the existing 2 holes right there on our plate. All right, here we go, guys. So we've got our bolts installed. These are through the existing holes in the frame. So one through there, you access it from coming up through here, put a long socket on it, and you can get to it right there. And then the other one is right through here, and that one's not obstructed at all. And that holds that. So that secures the bottom, and then you have to make sure that it is hooked in right here. So those tabs hook in. Again, they're labeled right here. You can see left on there. And then this is still hanging down, but we're gonna wait till we get our spring back in here, get the spring in, and then this should mate up to here once we bring our axle back up. So throw the spring back in, line it back up with our marks, put our bolt back in, and then we can move on to the next step. Almost, there we go. All right, she's in. Okay, so our lower shock bolt is installed. Everything's in. Just make sure that your spring is in the cup. And what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna jack up the rear axle so that our airbag meets this, so it's not under a ton of stress. And I'll put the bolts in, and then we can move on to the other side. So let's get these bolts in here. All right, so we've got our bolts in, it's all tight, and you have some adjustment on this, so you wanna make sure your airbag is sitting square and not like, you know, bent over or coiled over. So looks good where it's at. We're gonna go ahead and do the same procedure to this side, and we'll just rip right through it. Same deal, take the tire off, take the spring out. I'm probably on this side because there's not an easy way to get in with the Sawzall. I think I'm gonna take the tire off, the spring out, so I can get the Sawzall in from that, so I can get it on flat with the surface, and we'll take out this cup. Okay, so we decided to move into the garage because we ran out of daylight. So we're on this side, and instead of trying to cut from the inside, like I said, I'm just gonna take the spring out, and then I should be able to get my Sawzall in here to cut it off clean. So I've got the lower shock bolt out, we've got the frame supported, and we're gonna drop the axle, get the spring out, and then we can go ahead and start cutting. Same deal, make sure you mark your spring before you take it out. We've got this lowered, shock bolts out, and now this is gonna be loose. We're just gonna put some pressure on this and then get the spring out. There she is. Okay, so I would definitely come through the way I did, you guys, because I got a nice angle on that and a super clean cut. So I'm just gonna clean that up a tiny bit, and then we should be ready for paint. And this is what I'm using. I'll link these down in the description below. These things definitely come in handy. The flap wheels with the sandpaper on it. If you're curious, I think I'm using a 36 grit. So makes quick work of that stuff, and it flattens it out real easy. And that's what it looks like after she's flattened out with the flap wheel. Now we can hit it with some paint. So here we are, we're gonna put the bracket there. Same deal, we got this snugged up, so we kind of get it there. And then you go around to this side, and you wanna push it in towards the frame as much as possible so it's snugged up. And then once you get that, then you're gonna drill your 1/4 inch hole right there, and then we can put in that self tap. So we're just kind of just giving it a love tap with that snugged up, just so we can find the position on that bolt. Does that look like it's it?
Looks good to me.
Okay, and then once that's good and we double check it, we can fire our hole through there, drill it with a 1/4 inch. So there we go with that bolt. Now I'm gonna go, before I fully tighten this one down, leaving this one somewhat snug, but I don't wanna like distort the plate until I get the 2 front bolts in. So you're gonna go ahead and we'll tighten this one down after, but get the other 2 down so that we don't suck this plate and bend it out of proportion. And here we are here. We're gonna drill our 2 holes in here and then put the self-tappers in. Okay, so all of our hardware is tight. We got the 3 self-tappers all tight. Now we're gonna go ahead and slide the airbag in here, and we'll put in the 2 bolts. Again, one goes here and one goes there in the factory holes, and those 2 tabs just hook underneath. So throw that in, get the hardware in, and then we'll move on. All right, we got our 2 bolts here tight, one there, and one down here. So they're both tight. Now we can bring the suspension back up. To mate this, we'll get our bolts in, and then we can put the spring back in. Okay, so we've got our top bolts all in, everything's tight, so we're gonna put our spring in and then we can work on the heat shield. Okay, so we got our spring in and I got my lower shock bolt in, just gonna tighten it up and then we'll move on to the heat shield. So here's the heat shield that they supply with 2 band clamps. They also supply this thermal sleeve to go over our airline, but we're gonna go ahead and we'll throw this on first. Okay, there's a little heat shield. So you can see there, it just keeps the heat off of that. So I've got that in place. Let's move on to the airlines. Okay, so this next part, we're gonna install the Schrader valves on the back. On my last truck, actually, they drilled out the license plate bolts, which you can see right here. So I'm gonna do the same thing, and they used the Schrader valves as the license plate bolts. So here's the hardware, here's the end of it. I already put the nut on, so I'm gonna find out what size drill bit to use. I'll let you guys know in just a second, and I'm gonna pop them through, and then we'll install them on the back of the truck. All right, so I drilled these holes out with a 2164 drill bits, and now it fits in perfectly, nice and snug on both of them. So I'm gonna feed these through from the back side, and then we put the nuts on. All right, so check this out. I've got it in here, so you can see we've got our little Schrader valves. This is super trick. So you just pull the cap off, and they're right there. Of course, we're gonna do right and left, so we know which side's what, and it replaces our license plate bolts. So now I'm gonna route the lines to each respective bag and we'll finish this up. So here's the routing on the driver's side, comes out here, fastened it right here. I tried to fasten it every time I saw a fastener on the body so that it had some strength to it. Came through here, another one here, here. I didn't want it to get too close to exhaust. Followed here and then looped over the frame following that wire. And then once you get to this side, I'll show you guys here. Once it comes over the frame, right there, comes in through where all your ABS and brake line is here. And then it just routes directly there. I didn't want it to get anywhere near the spring, so that's why I kept it tight in here. And I threw a tie here to our brake line so that it keeps it all away, and we should be all good there. There's nothing that it can melt on or chafe on, so that's good. Let me go and do the passenger side and show you guys what I got. Okay, here's the routing for the passenger side. It came over through here, attached it to this wire, again up here, and I followed the same path, went underneath this cross brace, similar to here, around. There's a factory hole here, so I just looped it through and put my tie wrap there, and then went over the frame here, same as the other side. And now I'm gonna come down where the brake lines are and we'll go into the bag. Okay, and here's the routing here. So it comes over the frame, down through here, attaches to the hard brake line right there, comes through here. I put a zip tie through the hole. I don't know if you guys, hopefully you guys can see that right there. Put that tie wrap right through the hole on the bracket to keep it away from the spring. And then I also put the heat wrap that they provided at the sleeve. I just slid over here. And then all these fittings are pushed to connect, so you just slide it into the fitting on the top of the bag. So that is it. We can put everything back together and she's done. That thing is rock hard. We're just doing the test of 40 PSI in it. All right, guys, so that's gonna be a wrap for today's video. Yes, we have a different truck behind us. It got super late. We ended up putting the Ram back outside and put the SRT10 back in, but let me know what you guys think of that. I'll also keep you guys posted how it tows. That's gonna be the big test. We got a 24-foot enclosed car trailer, and we're gonna be towing across the country with it. So we did have a little bit of sag with the weight distribution hitch, and I wanted to add a little bit more support in the rear, so that's why we went with the airbag kit. So between having the weight distribution kit and having the airbag kit, I think we should be able to achieve a nice level ride. And I got a bunch of stuff behind me, and this is just only a fraction of the stuff that we're gonna be loading into that trailer. So stick around on the channel if you guys wanna see how that works. I'll keep you guys updated on that and also do a follow-up video. Also, everything that we use will be linked down in the description where you guys can find that same airbag kit that we installed. Make sure you give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button for more content, and we'll see you guys on the next video.